Hey folks, Geddes here, and I just got done watching a video from one of the people I'm subscribed to, Neverchris, and he did a rant on the Japanese video game industry, and I gotta admit, he brought out some really good points. Really good points. And to, I had been meaning to do a video on this very subject, but hey, I'm lazy. So, after watching this video, I got motivated to put out this video. So, I'm going to offer my opinions on just a few things he brought up. One of the things he brought up was handhelds, and he's absolutely right. The Japanese market has moved away from consoles, especially the 360 and PS3, because to put a big budget game on those, you have to invest a serious chunk of change. So, a lot of Japanese companies opt for the DS, PSP, or nowadays, probably the 3DS and PlayStation Vita. And yeah, trust me, the Japanese lineup I have seen from the PlayStation Vita is really good. So if you're a fan of JRPGs or more Japan anime styled games, if you will. Sorry, I got kind of caught up there, but if you're a fan of those style games, I'd recommend checking out the Vita. Now, to be brutally honest with you, I think Japan moving towards the handheld is probably their best bet at this point. Because with the exception of Final Fantasy 13, yes, it sold about 6 million, 7 million copies. I mean, that's about as good as it's going to get. I mean, I know a lot of people say, but what about all these other smaller JRPGs? The thing is, though, this is something a lot of people don't like to mention, is that with Japanese RPGs, it's always been a Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy only thing. Sure, some smaller ones did pretty well, but mostly it's been a Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy only thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, look right here. PSP, PSP, PSP right here. Great handheld. Loads of Japanese RPGs on here, and honestly, I've had this thing for 4 years. I've never had to replace it. And all the games I have on it are Japanese role-playing games. So when people say that the Japanese role-playing genre is dying, if you will, I mean, they're just not looking for it. If they're expecting these big-budget JRPGs on the 360 or PS3, I mean, you're not going to find it. They've moved on to the handheld. But, there's a few games that not many people have played. And I'll be right here. What do we have right here? Resonance of Fate. Great game. Great game. Japanese RPG. A very unique battle system. I mean, I'm saddened to say that not enough people have played it. At all. Absolutely, it didn't do horrible, but it didn't do that great either. But it's a great game. It's not the slow-paced, turn-based combat that a lot of people have a problem with. But it's very action-based, but there's some strategy involved in it. And here's another one. Nier. Great game. Another great game. Fantastic game. Absolutely great. Great story, great music, great voice acting. I mean, it's the total package. I mean, that's what I like about some of the smaller JRPGs on PS3. Since I play on the PlayStation 3, so I'll talk about that. I mean, we've got a lot of the NIS stuff goes under the radar, but it's still good stuff. Good stuff. And the second point he brought up were Western RPGs. Now, I this will probably be a controversial opinion, but I really don't consider Mass Effect or even the more recent Elder Scrolls games, and Fallout for that matter, to be RPGs. To be brutally honest with you, in Mass Effect 2, to call that an RPG, that's stretching it. It's, I mean, the combat, I mean, stats are irrelevant. The only thing they do is boost your damage a little bit. I mean, when I think Western RPG, I think Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Arcanum, Planescape Torment. Probably my favorite Western RPG is Planescape Torment. But you know what? It's got a very JRPG structure. All the characters are set. There's plenty of plot development. There's actually more story in the game than there is combat. But now I know that might be a controversial opinion to say that a lot of the Western RPGs these days aren't RPGs, but I'm sticking to it. I just don't think they're RPGs. I mean, if you look at Mass Effect, Mass Effect 3, from what I've seen so far, it's even more towards a shooter. To be brutally honest with you, the only thing you'll probably be able to do with stats, increase your damage, maybe make your attacks a little stronger for melee and whatnot, maybe increase your shields. What else? You know, stuff like that. Stuff that's in action shooters all the time. Stat and ability increases are not anything new to, like, the shooter genre. I mean, even if you go back to Deus Ex, that was a shooter, but it still had plenty of RPG elements. Although I would probably consider Deus Ex more along the lines of a shooter RPG, which are pretty much the big thing these days. This is why Bethesda has gone more, basically dumped anything relating to stats in Skyrim. Now, I'll admit, Skyrim does look vastly superior to Oblivion. I'll be honest with you, I did not like Oblivion whatsoever. It was just, it's what happens when you streamline an RPG too much to where it basically becomes a shooter with stats. Now, I'm a little more optimistic about Skyrim, because they're saying it's closer to Morrowind, which is great. That was the last time I was really excited about an Elder Scrolls game. So, what was another point he brought up? There's one I'm surprised we didn't discuss, was the crazy need to quote-unquote westernize by these Japanese companies. And by westernization, or westernize, whatever suits you, I mean the copying of superficial elements in popular Western games. First-person combat, the overtly serious, grim and gritty, grimdark story, and whatnot. And most of the time, the Japanese have tried this, or you could say just simply making a Western-style shooter. And Japan has tried this numerous times. Square Enix tried with Mindjack, which I don't know what the hell they were thinking there. Mindjack was a nightmare. I mean, that looked like... everything about that game was just bizarre. Everything from the story, the characters, the dialogue. You can't just make a shooter and expect Americans to eat it up, or the Western market to eat it up. I mean, you just can't. And they also tried with Front Mission Evolved, turning the great strategy RPG series of Front Mission into a generic third-person shooter with lame online play. It just does not work. And Capcom is also guilty of this as well. Mainly Capcom's whole westernization shtick got started with everyone's favorite nut job. Well, not nut job. Conspiracy theorist, doom and gloom himself, Keiji Inafune. The thing, and what's funny about Inafune is he was the one who came up with the idea to westernize Devil May Cry, and as soon as the negative reaction started coming in, he left the company. But it's not all his fault. It's not all his fault. Numerous other producers have said this as well, and they've tried. They've tried to appeal to the Western market, but it has just blown back in their face all the time. All the time. So, I don't get it. I don't understand. If they really want to try and tap the Western market, they need to do co-productions. Co-productions have worked out quite well in the past. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that Lords of Shadow was a Japanese Western co-production. So, Mercury Steam was a Spanish company, and while I wasn't the biggest fan of Lords of Shadow, it was a proper way to do a collaboration between Japan and the Western market. I know, I remember the game I just showed you, Nier, was a supposed Western stab at the Western market. But to be brutally honest with you, it's still fun. It's got all, I mean, the game just doesn't seem like it would appeal to the hardcore, action-heavy RPGs that most Western gamers like these days. But, I mean, yeah, other than that, although I did wish he would have, Neverchris would have gone into more about the westernization. I'm surprised more people haven't talked about this. But I do remember he did a video on Japanese role-playing games, which is another great video. People should go watch it. It's very informative. He talks about the bias that Japanese RPGs face in the Western gaming media over here, and it's true. It's absolutely true. Every NIS game that comes out, I mean, it gets like a 4. Now it wasn't a 4, it was a 5. It was a Altia Arona got a 5. And it was reviewed by someone who obviously, I don't know how long he played the game, but it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. I mean, to call it a review was just shameful. I mean, you know, and NIS is another company that deserves a little respect. They do the thing with their JRPGs when they release them over here, they're satisfied with 100,000, 150,000 sales. They can make a profit off of that. I think the problem was it's the bigger Japanese studios, Capcom, Square Enix, that try to go for these big budget projects targeting a Western audience, and frankly, most of them fall flat on their face. I mean, a good 90% of them do. I remember Capcom tried to tap the shooter market with Dark Void, which was it was just bleh. It was one of the most generic shooters I've played. It's just the standard cover base, come out, shoot your gun, do a dodge roll, melee attack the enemy. Although it did have some, although the flying missions with the jetpack were pretty neat. Too bad the game was a bug-riddled mess as well. But they really, I don't know. I don't know what is with a lot of the Japanese studios these days. I mean, to be brutally honest with you, I'm looking forward to the PlayStation Vita, and I will probably buy it because it's got a ton of Japanese support. Absolutely amazing how much Japanese support it's got thus far. And it'll have a lot of the Western style games that people like. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And if you're a fan of what's that? Nine Doors, Nine. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. But a spin-off of that is getting released on the Vita, and I'm definitely gonna check it out. I'm really glad that the Japanese have found a way to, at least the smaller studios have found a way to at least make a profit off of some of the games they make. If that means if a lot of them have to go to the handhelds to make a profit, so be it. I have no problem with handhelds. Absolutely none. But yeah, I just wanted to do a little rant, and I will link. I will put Neverchris's video in the description bar, so you can watch it yourself. And if you like it, favorite it, like it, whatever. And to anyone else who comes across this video, if you like what I say, please subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And the opposing viewpoints are certainly welcome, as long as they're civil now. Good night, and everyone have a nice day.